Make rocket ship go now. Hello, I am executive strategist and coach Robert Ogilvy. I said that in the wrong order. Hi, I'm Robert Ogilvy, executive strategist and EQ coach. Anyway, I think you guys have the picture. Hi, hope you guys are doing good today. Okay, so today's topic, what four secrets to bulletproof business decisions, and really this is any kind of decisions, but in this context, I'm talking about business decisions, organizational decisions, within organization decisions, because they're our biggest and most impactful. They deal with the most money, they affect more people, they last longer, etc. Right? Okay, so let's dig into what these four tips are. But before I do that, I'm just going to frame up. Um, they're actually in two different categories. Two of them are around how you're relating to others in your team, and two of them are around your own habits and capacities, but also you could think of kind of hygiene around how you're dealing with data, right? And so the theme here in all of this is that if you set up a good context, a good people context, and a good data rich, easy to access data context, it makes decision making way easier for you. Okay. So us dig into this. First of all, consult your team, or maybe I should say, racy chart. Talk to people, talk to team members about their input, and actually make it clear about who would be, if we made this decision, who would be responsible, who would be accountable, who are you just here to consult with, and who just needs to be kept informed. Even if you don't actually even explicitly tell them this, even though I recommend you probably should, even just internally knowing what their relationship to this decision is very important for you understanding how someone is approaching a decision, and that way the kind of the value of their input, right? So I'll just give you an example of what each needs. If someone's responsible for a decision, it basically means that the duty or the authority is falling upon them, right? So like if there's someone in charge of like the quarterly budget, right? And what you're kind of asking for them is like, do we have permission to spend this money? And it's falling on you if the ROI isn't good, or if we would do this again or not, right? Accountable is more like is if this doesn't go well, is there someone whose responsibility it is to kind of refer to this, right? And so it tends to make more sense if you think of things like an asset. And so it's like, listen, if the website breaks, Jim, the website guy, is going to fix it. He wasn't the one that broke it, but he's accountable for fixing it, right? So, or account manager in the sales context, right? It's like those are your accounts, those are your relationships, right? So if something doesn't go well with them, it's naturally you're the one who's going to step in and do something, which in some sense has to do with responsibility, but in a very like niche domain, right? You're the person who we know is in charge of that, dealing with that. Um, Consulting is really that not just you want their input, but I would say at best you want their expertise, right? And actually the other side of that is like stakeholder management, right? You know what is an awesome way to not just make people happier, but become way smarter, way faster? Ask people for their not just their opinion, but their expert opinion, and which means the more crunchy and technical and specific you can make the question, and the more hard hitting and complex you can make that question, the more their expertise gets a chance to shine, right? And if you're dealing with people that like challenge, that like new ideas and strategy, right? That's also relationship building for you because you're developing a habit and rapport around big, difficult decisions, making big, difficult decisions together and grokking through this stuff, right? Um, Consulting is often the way that you're going to be dealing with, I would say, upper stakeholders, right? Because you want to make sure that the decision you make is fitting with them. And the last one of the RACI chart is just to keep people informed. And this more has to do with like think of how many meetings where some portion of the members are like that could have been an email or why did I need to be there, right? So that's a great example of someone you just want to inform once the decision is made, but you don't want to uh, if someone is, I would say, kind of falsely or superficially involved in some meeting and some decision making process, but they don't actually have any input. As the more time and effort they waste on that, and the more attention they waste on that, eventually it's like, listen, like, why do you even involve me, right? Don't do that in the future. Just let me know what decision you come to, and that's all well and good, right? And that's a great gift to them, right? It's like it's preserving their time, and it's also kind of a matter of like you don't have to put a lot of effort into including me because clearly you just needed to inform me once the decision was made. Okay. So anyway, recapping the first one, it's just involve your team in this decision making, involve people around you in this decision making, right? And the premise of all of this is distributed leadership. That is distributed cognition and distributed leadership. It would be the long term nut of this, right? Okay, so then the second point is then in a technical sense, and this is maybe more specific to the team around you, your direct report to the team you're part of. Um, the it's really hard to undervalue how important teams are, and not just performance, but like ensuring high quality performance, right? So again, this recaps the first point of making the decision with the direct team around you, because it's basically going to mean uh, more productivity and less errors. And here's why. I'm going to dig into this a little bit. If you think of decision making and performance as, it's a bell curve, it's a variance, right? So there's, it's a mean, it's an average, and a standard deviation from that, right? Let's say your normal performance is great, 70, 90%, that means, 80% average. And that's you as an individual decision maker who reasonably has your stuff together to some degree, right? So let's say with the team around you, and I'm just playing a game of screaming numbers just to illustrate the point here. You might be dealing with a team, and then it actually, the ceiling of it is only 5 points higher. It goes up to maybe 95 is kind of the performance rating you could reach, but the floor gets boosted to an 85, and so the average is much higher. The average would go actually from an 80 to a 90, right? And that gets exponentially better. In fact, actually, maybe it should be even tighter than that, because when you look at the way teams boost performance, the upper ceiling boosts a little bit because the team's there, but the floor, like the minimum quality standard of what you'll do, boosts a lot, right? And that's part of why teams are so, um, I won't just say good at making decisions, but good at making more long-term and more impactful decisions, because if you've done your right talent piece well, there's enough perspectives and skills that you're able to tap into on the team, that the basically that decision making is more robust. It's been attacked from more angles. It's been quality controlled from more angles. More different outcomes and options have been considered, and you're going to arrive. You're that much more likely to arrive at a better solution, right? So, like, what if someone told you that consulting your team could cut your failures and error rate down by half or a third, right? You're like, well, that's a good plan. Anyway, I won't belabor that point too much. The last two, and I got 3 minutes and counting to deal with these, is the data dump, and the last one is just deferring to the data. Okay, so the human mind is actually not great at memory, and it has this weird thing too, where when we recall things, we're also kind of modifying it, and so we can like kind of trick ourselves. We can get into like narratives around things as opposed to the like raw, fresh data, because it's not what we're built for. We're actually more like these heuristic, meaning making machines, right? Um, and and so the more you're dealing with lots of data over lots of things, the more it becomes super important for you to have good. Think of it as it's like a data or a focus hygiene of saying I need to dump the data out of my brain onto a thing, so that I can look at it clearly and basically have a fresh mind to deal with that. This is actually the first step of, if you look at the GTD to get things done system from David Allen, that's the first step of that. And he calls it capture, because in his mind, in his lens, it's like you're capturing the data out of your head and you're putting it in a notebook or a list somewhere, right? And then there's other things you do from there. But this is super important. And in fact, actually, the point of all this is that you don't have to, it's not your duty to recall all these facts. That's why you have lists. That's why you have task lists. That's why you note things down. That's why you capture it somewhere else, so that in the moment you can make a good decision well without having to like remember and recall a bunch of other things, right? And so get in those habits of, data dumping things out of your brain, right? Don't be responsible for it. Use, analog means, use notebooks, use lists, use all kinds of things. And then the last one, and this is a whole thing unto itself, so I should do a video on this later, but defer to the data. And this is the one that's really about how much capacity have you made to be able to intake and make decisions based off data. So you're building systems that help you like look at KPIs, and they could be dashboards, they could be, I have this accounting tool, I have this sales CRM, I have this and that. You have something you can look at that gives you data. More organizational context, get in the habit of trying to pull intel, pull intelligence. The last thing I would say, and you learn this in MBA programs and things, is you do back the envelope calculations, right? So you might be in a totally new strategic context or considering something new, and you don't have any firm numbers yet, but you can make assumptions, right? And then your job becomes more about testing the validity of those assumptions, right? But it means that there's something that you can actually rely on. I'll try to recap all four of these points as fast as possible. Defer to your team. Think RACI chart in terms of who's responsible, who's accountable, who you want to consult to. Distribute your decision making. Teams help boost up the quality of your decisions. Data dump everything out of your brain. It's not your job to remember everything. And last is defer to the data, which means build up good KPIs. That's it for today. I'm Robert Ogilvy, Executive Strategist and EQ Coach. I will see you guys again soon.